I think it's the first time I'm presenting the index during the European Resource Bank. So this is the 5th edition, the 10th edition, sorry. And just a little bit background about Property Right Alliance. Is an advocacy organization affiliated to Americans for Tax Reform. We founded in 2005, thanks to the partnership with Professor Hernando de Soto. We organize mainly, we publish the International Property Rights Index, we publish a newsletter on property rights, organizing conference, building coalition, and of course running international coalition lecture on property right and IP. There are three key questions about why we develop an index. And through the index, we try to answer these three main questions. So what would the world be like without property right? Or how would a company or startup defend its own trademark or copyright without consolidated intellectual property right system? And how would democratic country build and strengthen their free market economy and improve their rule of law and governance without a fair and transparent legal political environment? So this is the reason that in 2007, we try to develop a consistent tool to measure the property right protection all over the country, and mainly focus on rule of law, physical property right, and intellectual property right. And every year we change the location for the global launch. For example, in 2014, we launched the index in Venezuela, thanks to the partnership with SEDICE. And Andrea Guevara is here on behalf of SEDICE. In 2015, we present the index in Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore. And last year, in August 2016, we present the index in New Delhi, India, thanks to the India Property Right Alliance run by Baladev Rangarayu. Just a quick note about India Property Right Alliance. Is a new project founded by different free market Indian people. The idea is to build a network in India with the main goal to re-establish the protection of property right in the Indian constitution, because they have been removed in 1978. So every year, Baladev Rangarayu ran the Property Right Conference. This year, we have the pleasure to have the national spokesperson for the Indian ruling party join the conference and be the keynote speaker about property right and IP. Just a quick overview about the index. As I mentioned, the first edition was in 2007 with Hernando de Soto as a main partner. We have our economist, Professor Sari Levi-Carciente from the Central University of Venezuela and Boston University, and she's also a member of SEDICE, the free market Venezuelan think tank. We measure 3 components and 10 items, and we explain later which of these 3 components. We partner with more than 100 think tanks around the world. We publish these 6 case studies on different topics, from property rights in Indonesia, Egypt. We also cover a section on religion and property right. And we analyzed this year 128 countries. So this is just a background of our economist, Sari Levi-Carciente, so a PhD in developing studies, and also a member of National Academy of Economic Science, former dean of the economic department of the Central University of Venezuela, and so on. And also senior fellow of Boston University. And this is the network of more than 100 think tanks, from Afghanistan to Venezuela. Barbara Coleman, she's one of the great partners in promoting the index around the world. And from Greece, we have a lot of free market think tank in the Balkans as well. And this is the methodology. Very simple. It's a simple average of equal importance for each component. The scale goes from 0 to 10. 0 is the worst in terms of regarding property right protection, and 10 being the best. We collect data from different sources like the World Economic Forum, IMF, World Bank, or International Intellectual Property Alliance Special 301 report. And we produce, we collected it according to different items. So the first component is the legal and political environment. So we measure the judicial independence, rule of law, political stability, control corruption. The second component is a physical property right. And what I mean is a regular physical property right, registering property and easy of access to loan, and intellectual property right, IP protection, patent protection, and copyright piracy. For each component, we collect data from different sources, mainly for the World Bank Doing Business report. And this is the international ranking. We can see, I don't know if you can read, anyway, Finland is the best performing country, while Venezuela is the worst performing country. And usually the North European countries are the best one. In Southeast Asia, Singapore is the best performing country, and so on, until, let's say, United States is 15. The average of the index is 5.4. So this is interesting to understand what is the average. For example, Finland is 8.5. So just give an idea what is the improvement or not. So this is the top 15 country. You can see Finland, New Zealand, Luxembourg, Norway, Switzerland, Singapore, Sweden, Japan, Netherlands, Canada, Denmark, Australia, Hong Kong, United Kingdom, and United States. The 15 bottom countries: Nicaragua, Ukraine, Madagascar, Lebanon, Chad, Mauritania, Moldova, Pakistan, Nigeria, Burundi, Zimbabwe, Haiti, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Venezuela. So you can see from the graphic the difference in terms of scoring. And we also analyze the data according to different geographical regions. So you can see that Oceania, North America, and Europe are the best performing region. East of Europe is another important component of the index with a pretty good score, and so on. And the worst one is, of course, Africa and some South American country. We also analyze the data through the IMF regional development component. So we see that advanced economy have the stronger protection of property right, and you can understand very quickly what is the worst area in terms of protection of property right. And also by income, according to the World Bank classification. You can see high income country and OECD country, non-OECD country, and so on. So just to show you how the strong relationship between protection of property right and economic development. And this is, for example, we analyze the data of our index according to the different trade agreement. So the best one in terms of performance is the Pacific Agreement, the EFTA, the European Free Trade Agreement, TPP, NAFTA, European Union, and so on. This year we analyze also the protection of property right according to population. So you can see that almost 64% of population live in a country where the score is below the average, and basically more than 4 million of people are living in a country where the protection of property right is pretty weak. While almost 19% of people live in a country where the protection of property right are above the average of the index. We also analyze the protection of property right according to gender equality, and we discover interesting data. For example, in countries where the protection of property rights are low, the protection of women's rights are pretty high. South America is an example, for example, or even Central America. And also this year we had this analysis. For example, we try to analyze different dimensions of development, like economic outcomes, human capability, social capital, research, innovation, ecological performance. We compare our data with other indexes. You can see here, for example, strong correlation, for example, with the economic complexity, global entrepreneurship, GDP per capita, or here, for example, the top 20% of the country have a GDP per capita income that is 21 times bigger of the bottom 20%. This explains very quickly, is a very powerful message that we can deliver to our policymaker in order to improve property right protection and create prosperity in our country. In this case, we compare our index with the Human Development Index by the World Bank or even the Freedom Education Index. We were curious to understand if there is a correlation, and we discovered, yes, there is a correlation about human development, even on terms of freedom of education. This is another example, social capital component. We compare the social capital component of the Prosperity Index by the Legato Institute, and we discovered there is a strong relationship. Same, we discovered for the first time there is a very interesting correlation with the civic activism and protection of property right, or even inclusion of minority, or intergroup cohesion. So every time there is a protection of property right, all the components of the democratic country, from freedom economics, rule of law, are improving. Even, of course, research and innovation. We analyze the strong correlation with the research and development and how many countries are investing in terms of GDP. And also, we try to compare the environmental performance index of the Yale University with our index. Even in this case, strong correlation, property right and environmental protection. And here in the cluster analysis, we can understand very quickly that in the cluster number 2 is the average of our index, where we can find Latin American country, European country, upper middle income, and in terms of population, more than 4 million people are living in the cluster number 2. Here, just a graphic about the protection of property right in Europe with UK, and to make our brief happy British people without UK. And this is basically a simple example of what is the best performing country in Europe. Here are data about the Balkans. The average of the Balkan countries is 4.6, so pretty below to the average. The best performing country in the Balkans is Slovenia. Second one is Macedonia, and followed by Croatia, Montenegro, and so on. You can see that West European, the average is 7.3. Central Eastern Europe is a 5.1. World is, as I said before, 5.4. This is very useful if you want to use to try to convince a policymaker how to improve the score of your country by component: legal, political environment, judicial independence, and so on. And this is also data for the Balkan country. So you can see that Slovenia is the best one performing country. Montenegro is moving forward to improve a lot. Macedonia improved a lot in the last years. And here another way to show the data: Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro,
Can I ask you a question?
Serbia, Slovenia. This is the average, the Balkans, Western Europe, Central Eastern Europe, and this is the world average. I have a couple of slides about the different country profiles. So I just showed the Finland, just to give you an idea as a benchmark. Is 8.4. This year, Finland increased. This year, last year, 2016, increase in a different component. This, for example, is Bosnia and Herzegovina is 106th out of 128 in the international ranking, 16 in the regional rank, and Bosnia and Herzegovina was the first time that we were able to add in the index. And Slovenia improved this year, is a 52 out of 128. Croatia remains stable with the same score last year. Serbia increased this year for 0.1. And Montenegro remained the same score last year for 4.5. Montenegro is a 94 in the global ranking. Albania increased 0.3. is 113 out of 128. And this is Macedonia, that remains stable also. Is number 68 out of 128. Every year also we publish different case studies. This year we have a toolbox about how to, for a policymaker, how to transform property right and improve your economy. It is a case study prepared by Elena Panaritis. She's a Greek economist, used to work in the World Bank, and she's the economist behind the reform in Peru, Haiti, and other Central American countries, together with Hernando de Soto. This, for example, a case study about using blockchain to improve property right protection in Honduras. Is a case study prepared by our partner, Fundación Eleutera. Another case study on IP in emerging market, the role of Egyptian economy in a relationship between land ownership and informal and private sector by the Egyptian Center for Public Policy Studies. And another one on property right and deforestation in Indonesia by the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies. And the last one is also a special case study about religion protection, property right from Islamic perspective. Last year we did the property right from a Christian perspective. This year, 2017, we are publishing a case study from the Judaism perspective, and so on, until we end with the religion. This is just an overview who is using our index from Forbes, The Economist, Financial Times, OECD, IMF, World Bank, United Nations. Recently they start using the index, National Geographic, they're using the index, and so on. And this is just the last slide is about a social media campaign we are going to launch on April 26th during the World IP Day. We also are launching an open letter. Barbara, thank you for joining the letter. Some of you already joined the letter. It's just a way to share our value in terms of protection of IP and recognize the role of WIPO, is the World Intellectual Property Organization that is playing around the world in terms of protection of IP. And Pugno Fala. Thank you so much to everyone.